Hey PSU, thanks for tuning in for another E3 2016 coverage video from the city of Los Angeles. We're talking about our reactions and impressions to all the games we saw and played on the show floor. And to give justice to two titles that I think the same type of fan will probably care about, we're going to talk about Final Fantasy 15 from some hands-on time we both got with the game, as well as Kingdom Hearts HD 2.8 Final Chapter Prologue. Okay. I know you entrusted that to me, but I actually needed to.
Title, isn't it? Too?
Well,
because
certainly
the part I played was the
part you played was Birth by Sleep 0.2, A Fragmentary Passage.
Jesus God.
Names aside, I think we have a lot to say about both of these games, and generally speaking, I feel like we're in a positive place. So let's start with FF15. Well,
Kingdom Hearts is positive, for sure. But.
So here's the thing about FF15, right? As people probably know from watching Microsoft's Xbox press conference, there was a demo shown there called Trial of Titan, and it was a boss fight from the game that specifically is a very cinematic boss fight against an enemy of massive scale, specifically the classic summon Titan.
Yeah.
So that is the section that we played on the E3 show floor. Now, here's the thing. We were not impressed by its showing at the conference. I was a little better feeling after having played it myself because we just simply, something went wrong at that conference. They flubbed it, or there were nerves, or something wasn't working.
And they also left out the most interesting, narrative piece. Which is him,
which is Noctis, the main character.
Running out, you're running up to... we started the demo where you're running up to where Titan is. And he basically just walks up to this ledge after fighting through some random enemies, and then he's there and he just goes basically just says I'm here. I'm fine. I'm here. What do you want? And he just looks up and then it's Titan, and then he screams at him. Well, he talks,
right?
But it's
there's something really compelling about the idea that the summons in this game might be calling to Noctis in some way, like getting inside of his head and infiltrating his thoughts. That kind of was the vibe I was getting from that. But I guess what struck me about the demo is that it has very clear positives that put me in a good place when I think about playing the final game, but also some negatives that I don't think there's time to fix, and I just think these are things about 15.
Yeah.
Like the camera, for example, is just brutal in that area because it's a tightly packed quarters, and I think it's the class of effect of...
Well, the first part is so tight, and it's narrow, and then when you're fighting Titan, you're constantly looking up. So the camera's forced to the ground,
which leaves virtually nothing around you. You can't see the floor that you're running
on. And also everything's the same kind of grayish brown tones on everything. So it's part of it was there's some glare on the screen just because of the nature of all the lights going on in the place. But
sitting as close to it as we were,
50-inch TVs this far away was kind of hard. But it was just part of it I was really straining to actually see what the details were, partly when the hand was coming towards in that scenario. And it was just
and
lots of debris, and
that's what I found about the combat is that if you couldn't get a sense of it from the press conference, this battle was more of a quick timey event tutorial than some of the combat sections we've played in Episode Duske or the Platinum demo,
or which are the beginning of this one.
Yeah, even the beginning of this one showed more what an actual battle will look like, despite the tight quarters.
Which I really, really enjoyed it, compared to the previous demo showings. This is way stronger.
I think what they've refined is A, being able to switch to weapons in the middle of a combo using the D-pad. That's a huge plus. The phasing, where just by holding square you can phase and dodge in natural ways. That just makes... That works a lot better with the fact that Noctis's animations are more elongated and they play out. And before, it was sluggish and you couldn't ever interrupt that to do something else. Now it's a little more lenient in giving the player, if you're in the middle of a combo but some shit's coming at you from over here, you still have a chance to phase and interrupt what you're doing.
And even if you do dodge roll out of the way and you're removed from your target, if you immediately follow up with a combo, he'll just instantly close that distance with another teleport automatically.
You were telling me that.
Make the combo way more fluid and just...
Absolutely.
That was one thing that really annoyed me in the Platinum demo, was you'd roll away and then you just sit there swinging 5 times and finally get back to him.
Yeah, absolutely.
You have to just run back into it, then get ready.
Yeah, it's the challenge with a character as sort of demi-godly as Noctis and as agile as he is that Square has to think through all the things that he should be able to do logically. It makes perfect sense that he'd be able to dash right back in to continue that combo, but you almost need players to point it out to you to be totally, we can do that. It's easy because it's Noctis that we're talking about. Visually, where are you at?
It was rough.
Yeah,
it's
I
still
agree.
Pretty rough. The environments are great, I think, overall, but part of it is that I just didn't pay attention to them specifically. Well, there were some we saw some stream footage of Square
like a
talking about
dark
the game
town. I
in
think it
the
was
last
Costa
day or
del
two.
Sol, like the
Yeah, it
ocean
was like
town.
that, but there are just specific objects in some of the areas that are just they are not rendered or anything at all compared to what they should be.
Yeah, they're striking. It's tough
So it's
because
like, these random isolated instances. It was like, how did you not
and that's
do this?
that's the element that I worry about the time that's left. Like there's like things like the camera. Unfortunately, that battle is what it is, and
Well,
thankfully the game at large is
The
more
music
open.
in the battle, though, that was the one thing too. Like, even though it was like there was part of that worked and didn't. Like, it'd be nice if the camera was out so you could just see what was going on the whole time. But having it in that far too, with the music being as like just powerful as it was, and having all these things happening above you and the sound effects going on, it really helped accentuate that feeling of chaos and just like trying to make sense of everything going on. So it's like there's two sides to it.
I do think that's always been a strength of theirs. But with the texture quality in particular, I totally agree.
Yeah,
They're a rough place in the game, and it doesn't make sense because it's a bigger world than past Final Fantasy games, certainly, but there are techniques to render the things that are close to you in much higher detail than things that are farther away. And I think that's what this game desperately needs. The vibe that I'm getting is that all the settings are turned down to accommodate the massive landscape being rendered at the same time, but you're not really supposed to do that. You're supposed to allocate resources
and
around
especially
you.
the characters themselves, just they look like they're jagged and
Oh, the
fuzzy.
jaggies,
like, they look
yeah.
frayed. Like
I know.
it's so weird. Like
So basically, the only way I see that dramatically improving between now and September 30th is if the game, for all intents and purposes, is done, and now it's just 3 months of polish.
yeah.
And that could very well be the case. I hope that's the case. And what we were playing might have been a couple months old build anyway, but still, like, it's going to be it's definitely going to tarnish the experience if the game in its entirety looks like that. None of the trailers do. That's the thing.
Right.
Trailers look crisp, beautiful, polished, which makes me think, what's going on with the build? You know, what's going on with the actual playable portion?
Why are they making an animated series, a movie, and a bunch of other crap to go along?
So
with
far,
it?
the animated series is pretty good.
Did you watch the second episode?
I watched only the first episode. I
I didn't
haven't
see
seen
the
the
second.
second.
How
The
can
first
you-
was
Why
solid.
would you call it good?
It was solid. It's character backstory. It's just leading you in and getting you prepped to play the game.
Yeah.
It's not Evangelion. It's not exploring deeper themes, but
It's the quality that you'd expect of a free YouTube anime.
no, I disagree.
That's
I think it was a
exactly
good
what it
watching
is.
time. But anyway, we have a second game that we want to talk about in this video, and that is Kingdom Hearts Birth by Sleep 0.2, A Fragmentary Passage. All right. Kingdom Hearts fans know what we're talking about. But for everyone else, this is an additional story episode tacked on to this HD collection that helps fill in a little bit about what the character of Aqua is doing after the prequel Birth by Sleep.
Yeah.
And what's notable about this demo is that it uses some elements of the Kingdom Hearts 3 graphic and combat engine. To me, it strikes me as like a halfway point between what Birth by Sleep looked like on PSP and what we've seen Kingdom Hearts 3 look like in trailers, which is just vivacious and gorgeous. This is somewhere in between. There's definitely some beautiful stuff going on, which made it kind of a... I mean, what was it like for you? Because you played it and you got a sense of what it felt like.
The first thing I noticed was that the character movement. I mean, like it felt really nice, but just like the moving, that was the kind of like really like freely kind of wobbling. Like, you know, if you're like go left and right, it was like pivoting.
Like really quickly, kind of
Yeah,
thing.
like it was just kind of weird.
Yeah.
It seemed kind of unnatural and I don't think that's what the 3 is going to be like at all.
No,
when it gets to it, but
no, it hasn't been. And come to think of it, I feel like Birth by Sleep had a bit of that going on as well, like with quick diagonals.
But the combat was really fluid. It was one of the greatest things that I noticed right away was being able to cast spells while you're in motion, so you don't get slowed down. I have to like plant your feet and stop, and then do it and keep going. It's just like you're kind of still like gliding, and she just kind of casts her
and she
keyblade up
tosses
behind
it
her
over her head,
and just keeps going. Yeah, and
that's awesome.
moving it around, and it made that feel so much better.
The animations were really fluid. What struck me watching over your shoulder was, you know, before when you would enter an area, Heartless would just appear around you, they'd suddenly spawn, and the battle was on. This had a cinematic setup where you would be running into like a plaza, say, and suddenly camera swoops down to be over Aqua's shoulder, and she sees like like things pop up.
Yeah, the first time coming into key areas, it wasn't like not every time, which is good because that would get pretty tiresome.
I imagine so. But that's a good element of what's happening in 3, because we've seen those moments in the trailers for Kingdom Hearts 3 where they're using a cinematic camera. And some light platforming. I noticed Aqua hopping from like light post to light post.
Yeah, that was
across
that
maps.
was surprising because it was like I was trying to jump over to the location and she automatically
why wouldn't
snapped
you?
to this thing.
Right.
And it threw me off, but
Dream Drop Distance did that in good ways, which is that game, of course, is the main part of the collection that Fragmentary Passage will be included in. But I'll be curious to see what they take from Dream Drop Distance, because that used even parkour to some effects. Like a Sora, you could like pivot off a wall and gain extra power coming at enemies and stuff.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. There was you got to activate like Spellweaver mode in this too.
Yeah,
doing
so
stuff.
cool.
And so she'd get this
Classic
kind of
stuff.
shimmer going on, and after a certain amount of damage you deal or enemies you defeat, then you'd be able to press. I really like the button prompts in this too. Actually, they were this more ethereal. They weren't like solid like triangle.
Yeah, yeah.
It was just kind of like these nice like wisps of light.
Yeah, like blended a little better.
Yeah,
right?
so which was also kind of made it a little more difficult to spot them if you weren't really paying attention. But it was just a nice way to do that. And triangle in that was like first to activate it, do it for a while, then you press it again after a certain amount of time, and then she'd do like she did this in Birth by Sleep, I think, where she would just like she'd kind of wind up and she'd put her keyblade up and then she'd start like just spinning with like a bunch of
like
for a while with a bunch of
for sure
magics going around her, and
I even saw you
damage.
use her shot look ability as you leapt away and then started targeting
Yeah,
enemies
in the
from
final
afar,
game.
and then used Ragnarok, I think, on them. So that's
Yeah.
again, it seems
which
like
that
the
made a
Birth
really
by-
cool cinematic moment because it was a bunch of the Heartless that were all like in a pillar, just kind of
Just
like
that column,
flying
yeah.
up, and I was just kind of like in the air, falling backwards and locking on, and just zoomed down in slow motion and locked onto a whole bunch of them. And it was like,
Yeah, I think that's what's exciting about Fragmentary Passage is that it's giving gamers a sneak peek at 3 in terms of applying some elements of 3, like the cinematic angles and probably of that light platforming to what is really the Birth by Sleep engine with spellcasting and Spellweaver and the shot lock
and
system.
it looks it's like very very promising look into what you would have expected a new Kingdom Hearts on current generation
absolutely.
systems look like.
All things considered, a pretty good
Actually,
showing for
skipping
these.
a generation.
Yeah,
even.
very
So,
true,
like,
very
that's-
true.
Yeah.
And I'm excited to play Dream Drop Distance in HD because that is actually one of my favorite games in the series, and it has a lot of similarities to Kingdom Hearts 1's combat system and simplicity. So either way, it's definitely a must-have for Kingdom Hearts series fans to be able to play those things on PlayStation 4. And then as far as Final Fantasy 15 goes, well, if it's bad, we can just hug our buddy Cactuar here.
Yeah, I don't know. It's gonna be. They've got. How big do you think the day one patch will be?
Good God.
I'd say easily.
I'd peg it at 5 gigs easily.
I was gonna say it could be
that's
10
kind of
gigs.
that's kind of the bog standard now. I mean, even Uncharted had a 5 gig patch
Yeah,
when it
I'd
first
say
went live.
because I wouldn't be surprised if it was like 10. Sit and wait 4 hours before you can start the game and be unimpressed. I hope that's not the case.
Games have changed.
Games have changed.
But we're not changing. We're continuing to bring you E3 2016 reactions and coverage of everything that we played and saw this week. So stay tuned to PSU.com and our social feeds where we'll make sure we share those things with you. Thanks for watching.